Hello, good afternoon. My name is Manuela. I work for UK Trade and Investment in Portugal. And first of all, I would like to thank you for your presence here. Thank you so much for attending, and I hope you find it interesting. I'm going to talk a little bit about Portugal and also about a new concept we are developing in Portugal, which is using Portugal as a platform to other speaking countries, namely Angola, which is the one with whom we have been in closer contact, and we are already establishing some very successful partnerships. I'm going to start to explain a little bit about Portugal. So, as you probably know, Portugal is part of Iberia, along with Spain. You will hear from my colleague from Spain in just a couple of minutes. We are a country of 10.6 million people. The biggest city is obviously Lisbon, but then there are other bigger cities like Porto, Coimbra, and Faro in the Algarve. The good point is that we are a stable and democratic partner with a very long standing close connection with the UK. In fact, we are the oldest allies in Europe. English is widely spoken and usually accepted as a business language, so no need for translators when dealing with Portuguese companies. We have the same time zone as the UK, and there are lots of low-cost flights between several cities in the UK and also Lisbon, Porto, Faro, and Funchal. We are an open economy used to imports, and the Portuguese are early adopters of new technologies. The most important point at the moment is that Portugal can function as the entry route to other Portuguese-speaking countries, just like Angola, Brazil, and Mozambique. In terms of education sector, the education sector in Portugal is quite similar to the education sector in the UK. So education is free and compulsory until the age of 18, when the students are supposed to graduate from the 12th grade. The education sector is regulated by the state through the Ministry of Education and Science, which also has the responsibility for the qualification and vocational training sector. The system of public education, and also there is a system of public education, but there are also lots of private institutions and private schools for all levels of education, from primary to university. The national higher education system, both universities and polytechnic, are integrated into the European higher education area. In terms of opportunities, I would say that Portugal, despite the current economic crisis that most of you have heard about and that we are slightly recovering, so hopefully in May Portugal will end the bailout agreement, following Ireland, hopefully the good example. The most important opportunities lie on technology in education, obviously for a reason of cutting expenses. It's always cheaper to deliver through technology. Training for teachers, special education needs. Since a couple of years ago, the law changed in Portugal, just like in the UK, and the children with special needs were integrated in the regular education system, meaning that they have now to comply with all the regulation as regular children, and they need everything adapt to their special needs. And English language training is also a very good opportunity in specific sectors. For instance, in healthcare, it's very important. As you may know, there are lots of doctors and nurses that would like to come and work in the Anglophone world, especially in the UK, and there is currently a big demand for English classes that are specially dedicated to the healthcare area. Then corporate training, and in the end, the major opportunity again lies on the fact that Portugal can act as a springboard to other Portuguese-speaking countries. I would like to talk to you a little bit about the situation in Angola, the country with whom Portugal has a good and standing relationship, and with whom we have been working in close connection with our colleagues from UKTI. In Angola, as you probably know, there was a very long civil war after the decolonization, and now the country finally achieved peace, and everything is to be built and to start from scratch. The education sector is really a priority for the Angolan government, and the first 4 years of education in Angola are free and compulsory, but the fact is that Angola, a country with 20 million people, of which 47% are youngsters with an age below the 15 years old, has a very low average time that each child spends in the education system, and that is really a concern for the Angolan government. The top priority is really to sustain growth and diversify the economy. In fact, 50 cents from every barrel of oil produced in Angola is ring-fenced for the development of human capital. The fact that Angola is a country where all the opportunities are flourishing at the moment can lead us to say that, in fact, they will be needing to build more schools, they will be needing to train the teachers because there's really a big lack of skills from the people that work in the education sector. So plugging the skills gap, and once again, English is really crucial for this country where the oil and gas sector is so important, and therefore English will be the communication language for all the businesses. You may ask, what are the advantages of partnering? Well, Angola is not an easy country. Most of the people don't speak English. There are some cultural differences. It's a very big country in terms of geography. Although it's not very populated, in terms of geography, it's really huge. And so the advantages of partnering with Portugal, well, the most obvious one is language, of course. And when we speak of the Portuguese language, please remember that we are not talking only of the Portuguese market, which has 10 million people, but we are talking of a wider market of almost 300 million people, including Brazil, Angola, Mozambique, Cape Verde, all the countries that speak Portuguese. Then the Portuguese have the market knowledge. They have the cultural affinity. Portugal and Angola have the same similar legal system. There are bilateral agreements in terms of taxation that make it preferential to deal with Portuguese instead of dealing with the UK directly. And then there's low risk and low investment from a UK company if decides to partner with a Portuguese company that then has a branch or a subsidiary in Angola. So I'll be around for the rest of the day. I have a table over there with the flag of Portugal, and I would be very pleased to welcome you in the table. And if you have any burning questions, anything that you would like to discuss with me, please feel free to approach me. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you.
Good afternoon. You're having today a session on Southern Europe, so Italy comes next. My name is Valeria Notari. I'm the head of the education unit and other sectors within the British Consulate General in Milan, in Italy. So welcome to Italy, a country of nice beaches, arts and culture, some clever minds of the past, and I will want to know if anyone knows these people. Probably you know better these famous people of the present, and you know for sure that we like some red things. This is Italy. This is how it looks like. It's a very long country. I chose this picture. It's not the traditional geographic picture, but it's divided by regions, because for the education sector it's very important to know that Italy is divided in 20 regions, 5 of which have a special autonomy and are the main islands of Sardinia and Sicily, and 3 northern regions that border with France and Austria, and where both languages, French and Italian in one case and German and Italian in the other case, are spoken, so they have special requirements. Sorry, the political capital is Rome, of course, as you all know. So the head of the diplomatic mission, the British diplomatic mission in Italy, is in Rome. But the headquarters of UK Trade and Investment, which is our business services, is up there in Milan, because Milan is the capital of business in Italy. Then we've got offices also down in Naples, which is another very active area, and also it's a port to other Arab Mediterranean countries, like Northern Africa, for example. So I said Milan, Rome, and Naples. We are 26 people in Italy, only dedicated to UKTI activities, out of about 130 people within the whole diplomatic mission. And dealing with education, it's me, my colleague Alessandra in Milan, and then we work a lot with our Rome colleague Nadia, who works more with ministries and policy. So the education sector in Italy, who are the key players? Of course, the ministry, and in Italian it's the Ministry for Education, University and Research, MIUR, the regions, the provinces and municipalities. Each player has got different role. Of course, the ministry sets up policies and is responsible for the majority of the funds, but the regions play a key role in funds as well, as we will see later. They not only manage national funds, but they only have own regional funds. And they're also responsible for the vocational education. And then municipalities, for example, they own the buildings or they run the services, the catering, the cleaning, this kind of stuff. And then you'll read the numbers about the size of the school. Of course, Italy is a big country in Europe with more or less the same size of population as the UK. And it's interesting these are data of the public school, by the way. The private school is is much smaller than the public one. It's interesting to see that the 40,000 schools are gathered in groups. So the headmasters have normally more than one school to manage. Normally it's an average of 4 to 5 schools. So the decision makers you need to know about and you need to contact. There are in fact only 8,000, not 40,000. Since we're here at BAT, I thought I'll give you some ideas of the specific opportunities in the technology for education sector. And in Italy, we've got a plan running, which is called National Plan for the Digital School, which is actually the first action that the government put in place to implement the more general digital agenda, as it has happened in other European countries. And this, you see, I've put a figure up there, 40 million euros have been devolved to this activity, which will take place through agreements between the state and the regions in the 15 traditional regions I was telling you about before. What does that mean? It means that 40 millions are spent 50% by the ministry, so the money comes 50% from the ministry and another 50% comes from the regions. And this plan is divided in 4 actions, the majority of which has already been done, but of course there will be new activities in place. And these are the interactive whiteboards, so putting as many interactive whiteboards in the schools as possible. Class 2.0 means there is at least one class in the school that is highly technological. And then the School 2.0 project is having a whole school which is totally technological. And then the Digital School Centers is a project that tends to put together groups of schools which are located in remote places, islands or mountains that don't have access to many services, and putting them all together with the technology will help them create them a digital school center. Unfortunately, not all the schools have a broadband at the moment. There is a lot to be done on that, but there is a project of putting wireless in several schools. This is a 15 million euros project, which will be spent in 3 years. This will involve 1,500 schools. And hopefully, once the broadband will come in and more schools will have the wireless, it will be easier to put in place the e-books project, which is due to be completed by September 2015. So by that date, in theory, hopefully, all schools will adopt e-books rather than traditional textbooks. Opportunities, of course, for teachers, as Manuela was saying before, it is very important that teachers understand what they work with, and there is a lot of potential in Italy because unfortunately teachers are very traditional, educated, and so they need to step up with the technology. Another big project is the National Cloud. First part of it is on board and running, so the administration bit, so every children is registered, all the headmasters and the teachers are registered. You can access a database, you can send emails and access it. But the second part, the content one, is at the moment at the study phase. I thought it was interesting for you to know also that the government has just signed a law that will spend 450 million euros on school building to modernize them and to make them more adapt to the use of technology. This is all plans. This list is all of national plans. And I thought it was worth mentioning Lombardy and Sardinia, who are two regions who have got their separate plans. So they are setting apart regional funds for their own projects on top of the national ones. And there is not enough space here and there is not enough time, but all the regions are putting up in place their own projects on top of the national one. A couple of words on the procurement. Apart from a few exceptions, the ministry does not purchase centrally for the school. Purchases are devolved to the regions and in turn to the schools direct. So schools are gathered when they do the purchasing in groups which are called reti, networks, or punti ordinanti, buying points, purchasing points. And this is how it works with or without tenders according to the figures. And over the 125,000 euros of a purchase, you need to go through the MEPA and MEPI, which are these secret mysteries, the electronic market for public administration and electronic market for public education. So the first one has been up and running for a few years now. So you can go online on this website and see everything that the public administration in every area needs. And so all the purchases can be done there. The MAPE is a recently new project, has been recently launched. And the idea is to have a window where the schools will find solutions, integrated solutions for their technological problems. So you will find only the single product, not only the single tablet. You will find a solution which will solve your schooling problem. Of course, all this is happening in Italian, unfortunately. So it is very hard for a foreign company to access the market for public administration. So it is definitely advisable to work with a local partner on Italy on this type of activity, because they would know when are the tenders published, how to read the tenders, how to respond to tenders, and they would also know which are the regions that have got more funds available, which are the schools that are more modernized, and they would know where to go. And this is where we can help in understanding and identifying the most suitable partner for a British company. And we do that in the usual UKTI ways of market research, partner research. Sometimes we do events. And I want to briefly mention that in February, at the end of February, we're doing an event in Italy, in Rome, at the residence of our ambassador, where we will put together British companies to Italian companies, presenting the British companies, trying to match-make them with Italian operators. And we'll also have presentations from the ministry and the regions on how the state of the art is at the moment in education. I have further information, like Manuela said, I've got information on this event, a report on the education sectors which is more detailed, and I'm here if you need any further information after the presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Hello everybody, my name is Sarah Roles-Ndibe. I'm from UKTI in Barcelona, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Spanish education market. I don't know if any of you have had any dealings with Spain before, but you may have come across some of these characters. Belinda Coombs, Marc Michaud, they're based out in Madrid. And I am based in Barcelona with my colleague Raul, and we also have an office in Bilbao. I don't know how much you know about Spain, but it's very devolved. There are 17 autonomous regions, and there are several officially recognized languages. The most important of those are the three, which is Castellano, Spanish as we know it, Catalan, which is the #1 language in all education in Catalonia, and then there's Euskara in the Basque country, Bilbao, and that is sort of dual language in schools and in universities. So when you're looking at Spain, you're not really just tackling one market, you're tackling three, and it's at three at least. And their budgets, as in Italy, they're all devolved down from a national governmental level into a regional level, and then again devolved into the schools. So the schools have the actual buying power. A couple of interesting points about the education sector in Spain. When a Spanish student is looking for a higher education institution or for a university degree, the UK is the #1 area that it goes to outside of Spain. So that's kind of a stamp of quality that you're seeing from that Spanish students see in the UK education. Another interesting point is that the budget per student, the Spanish expenditure per student is actually higher than the OECD average. So in Spain, per student, they spend on average in US dollars $9,500 per student, and the OECD average is 9,300. That's a number from 2010, but it's still fairly representative from what we're seeing today. However, despite that spending, we're seeing some failings in some key areas throughout Spain. So one of the big issues that we're dealing with is a 26% school dropout rate. So a lot of the children are not going any further than the basic education level. And that obviously has knock-on impacts for how well the economy can do in future years. PISA scores are 12 points lower than the EU average, again, despite the spending, especially scoring particularly low in mathematics. And despite consistently high spending in English learning, they're still about the 3rd worst in Europe in terms of how to speak English. So my colleague Manuela in Portugal, they have this advantage that all of the companies that you're dealing with and in the schools, they'll speak English. That's not the case in Spain throughout the companies and within schools. So that can be difficult. Reform, I mean, obviously this has been recognized by the government because it impacts their competitivity in a wider world. So there is reform planned and there is reform underway, and it's this LOMCE regulation change. It's really quite controversial in Spain, but there are some key areas that it hopes to combat. One of those is language training, so they're trying to improve the way they train both the teachers and the students in language. They're looking at improving how Spain works in vocational training as well. And they're also, which is a very wide term, but they're looking to promote the use of ICT. And where that actually comes down to is promoting the use in the classrooms, i.e. getting teachers on board in how to use the infrastructure hardware that they already have in place. My colleague Valeria in Italy was talking about their School 2.0, Classroom 2.0. We've been through that as well in Spain, and actually I haven't seen a classroom that doesn't have an interactive whiteboard. They're everywhere. The problem is there's no content, no useful content to put on them, and not every school has a proper buy-in from a teacher in terms of how to get the most out of this technology that they have. So you're seeing a lot of interest. Well, I'll talk about this a little bit more on the next page because this is one of the opportunities that we see in Spain. So the sector opportunities that I'm going to talk to you about today, there are three that I'm going to focus on. The schools market is, it's a little bit different to how we saw from Valeria in Italy. The private sector is a lot more important in Spain. It's a lot larger. 17% of all schools are private. On top of that, you've got 30% of schools that have some state funding and some private funding as well. They're called concertadas. And so that market is really big, and it's still getting some funding through. The state school market it has a level of funding. It's consistently being cut. Hopefully we've seen the bottom, but that's not an area that we're suggesting that you would try too deeply to get into now. Maybe if you're looking to build up a relationship with local governments, with the schools, for buying in the future, that's an idea, but it's not an area we would necessarily say has a big capacity to spend at the moment. Also in Spain, another quirk of the schools market is the number of British curriculum and international schools that you have in Spain. There's a National Association of British Schools in Spain called NABS, and they have an event every year. There's 60 of those schools that form part of that network. There's also COBIS schools. So in fact, you're seeing maybe over 100 British curriculum or international schools throughout Spain. That is a potential ready-made market, which is quite well funded and is actually growing. So anything that would sell well in a British school for British curriculum would also sell well in this area. The other area that's of interest to us in Spain that we see that there is growing demand is in this transnational education, especially in higher education and further education. So Spain has an issue in its universities that it only has one university in the top 200 ranking in Times Higher Education in the world. And that obviously compares quite disfavourably to how the UK ranks. So there is a desire from UK institutions, universities, higher education colleges to find partners in the UK to help develop course content, help develop student exchanges, work together to get research grant funding, to really try and help improve the offer for both British students, for Spanish students, but also to appeal to maybe the Latin American market as well, to try and pull them in. So we've been working quite a lot with universities in Spain, and that's definitely an area that's growing in interest. The final sector, final opportunity that we see touches a bit on what I mentioned previously, that there is a lack of digital content in Spain. So I've had a few meetings over the last couple of days and with some publishers, and they're bringing a book. And so I asked them, what's your online, what's your e-learning angle? And a lot of them haven't got that yet. I'd say in Spain, it's almost an opportunity where they'll pay for online content and they'll expect the book for free. It's gone that way so far that if you're coming with just a book, there isn't really that much of a market demand for it. So you have to have an online offer to match, or a digital offer to match what you're doing in your book world. We're seeing a lot of educational publishers looking for digital content to try and diversify their offer into schools. So we have been working with big publishers that are looking for animation, video, games learning in mathematics, in your STEM subjects, which is an area obviously that Spain needs to improve in. So I think I'll leave it there. For how UKTI wants to work in Spain with you, we want to be your in-market partner. We're going to work with you to try and develop your business, because what we want from you is that you get real revenue outcomes, real-world business outcomes. So we'll work closely with you, working up your in-market strategy, figuring out the best penetration strategies for you, and then we'll work with you to try and get that real-world outcome. That's what we're looking for. So we can provide that via market intelligence, bespoke events, meeting agendas, getting you in front of buyers. That's going to be our aim. So I would say, come and speak to me, and we'll figure out how to give you success in Spain. But we'll also be honest. If we don't see the opportunity for you there, I don't want to waste your time. I'm going to be honest with you, and we'll see how it goes. So thanks so much for listening, and we'll still be there having meetings if you would like to book anything in. Thank you. Bye-bye.